Hey, how's it going, everyone? I just want to do a relatively quick video, talk about this company called Weatherford, which has quite a few operational sites here in Houston. So this hits pretty close to home for me. But Weatherford is one of four major oil and gas service providers. The other three are Schlumberger, which I used to work for, Halliburton, Baker Hughes, which is now owned by GE, and Weatherford. And so, this is a pretty big deal, pretty big hit, to the city of Houston. So first and foremost, just for the numerology people, the Russian vids types, Chapter 11, chapter starts with C, which is the third letter in the alphabet. So 311, 3 times 11 is 33. So the Most High has put, in coding, even in, the bankruptcy litigation terminology. And so the article states that the oilfield service company Weatherford International filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection Monday, blah, 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 took on too much debt and fighting to recover from falling oil prices in 2014. So in my opinion, 2014 was the inflection point in the U.S. economy. That's when things were noticeably slowing down. The stuff that's going on right now, Deutsche Bank and all these other layoffs and all that, are more just the kind of tail end result of a slowing down U.S. economy. And so Weatherford got its start in 1941. Like I said, it's the fourth largest oil field service provider. And so it said that it had $10 billion in liabilities, including $7.5 billion in unsecured bond debt. This part I thought was kind of ridiculous. Weatherford said in its bankruptcy filing that it could not determine the value of the debt from its other largest creditors. Just the value, just the term, the phrase value of debt to me is an oxymoron, but this is the world that we live in right now. So Weatherford's not even able to put, a valuation on some of its other debt, which is ridiculous. But the other debts involve litigation expenses and all that. Okay. And so this also is insane. Weatherford said Friday that nearly 80% of its creditors are backing its reorganization plan. So I don't know what the other 20 are saying. That's still a significant amount of the creditors that will not be happy and will potentially have to forfeit, some of their repayment. So Weatherford's reorganization plan allows the Swiss company with its principal place of operation in Houston to shed $5.8 billion of its $7.6 billion in long-term debt in exchange for 99% of the stock in the reorganized company. The agreement also provides the company with $1.75 billion in fresh credit and loans. So basically what happens is that the debt gets converted into equity. And so this is really kind of the scheme that's going on, is that the central banks are really enslaving everybody. And then but also corporations are enslaved to these central banks, these debt offerers, debt offering institutions. And so when things get real bad, like it is for Weatherford, they do what's called a debt to equity conversion. So they have things in the contract in place that, if you're not able to meet certain covenants and obligations, then they own the company. And so it's the same thing with mortgages and with us, at the individual level. If you don't pay off, your debts, things can be repossessed. Essentially, you lose ownership, over whatever the assets are. And so it's no different in a company. And so this is really the goal. This is actually literally the goal of central banking, is to put people in debt, all of us. And then once we can't pay, which is what they want, then they literally own us. Like we are essentially indebted to this system potentially for the rest of our life, and possibly even beyond the grave, and these debts can actually be passed on to people who are arm's reach away from us. That's why it's very, very important to be aware of, people that we keep close to us, especially people in our family, and their financial situation can sometimes affect us. So, essentially the central banks succeeded in what they wanted to do here. And so this company, it's insane. Like imagine anybody who has a $7.6 billion long-term debt and it was able to shed $5.8 billion of it. Like how many students out there have huge amounts of student loan debt and getting, forgiven 60 to 70% of it? That doesn't happen. It only happens to corporations. And so this to me is, again, part of this beast system. It's what God wants in this. What I hope and suspect is that all of this is leading up to the mark of the beast, and the reason I say I hope that, because it would not make sense otherwise. Honestly, this whole system would just be completely ridiculous and insane if it was not for a specific purpose, like the mark of the beast. And so, in my opinion, these corporations are the tentacles of this beast system, and so God needs to sustain them. He will do whatever he needs to do to keep these companies alive, even if they're on life support, like Weatherford, because these are the entities that will then be part of implementing the beast system worldwide. And so this company should have disappeared a long time ago. And so this is, the world that we live in. And actually just the point right above proves this. If you read that statement in the last sentence of the paragraph above, the company has not made a profit since the third quarter of 2014. This company has been bleeding money for the last 5 years. If any individual, us, normal people, would not be able to pay back for us like a credit card debt for 5 years, there'll be people at our door, taking everything they can. They'll take our car, they'll take our toothbrush, they'll take whatever they can, to recover their money. And so this, again, to me is further evidence that this system is only designed to feed the beast and the tentacles of this beast system, which are corporations. And so moving on, Weatherford went on a buying spree 2 decades ago, and then it talks about how their problems were sort of arising during the oil price collapse in 2014. The company's stock price fell below $1 a share. It's basically a penny stock now. And so Weatherford had 67,000 employees at the beginning of 2014, but today it only has 26,500. So that to me is, if someone were to plot the graph of all these companies and how many their headcount, not just Weatherford and all that, these oil companies, this is a service company. So it's not like an actual oil company like Shell and Exxon, who are the ones who are actually doing, basically own all the rigs. And then, the stuff that the quote unquote stuff that comes out of the ground is actually owned by them, and then they refine it and then they distribute it to us, through their gas stations. This company, Weatherford, and the 3 others that I mentioned are service companies. So they come in and essentially help and are the engineering and the consultants to get, the hydrocarbons out of the ground. And so this is a secondary sort of industry to the main one, the quote unquote main one, like, that Exxon, Shell, and Chevron and all those are involved in. They call those the major, oil producers. And so it's still reflective of what's going on, and so the oil and gas industry fundamentally is a fuel to fuel the goings on of the world, to power, different things and all that kind of stuff, and also facilitate transportation, and the sort of logistics movement of goods worldwide. And so once, this industry is struggling, it's a reflection of other things that are slowing down. And so it's pretty directly coupled, to what's going on in the world. And I was just watching a video, and I'll put this link below for both of these. On CNBC television, the title is "OPEC is staring down a slowing global economic picture," expert says. And so this is also bad news, for Weatherford, because if they're in bankruptcy now and the economy is slowing down, it's not like they're looking, in a sort of through a hopeful lens, like things are going to bounce back and turn around in the near future. Unfortunately, it's only going to get worse, for the 26,500 workers that are left at Weatherford. And so, it's even if they did have a job for the next year or two, it's obviously very, very, unnerving to know that, your company is going through bankruptcy, and, people who've just joined, will could potentially lose their job soon and then be on the job market again and all that kind of stuff. And so, there's really no job security anywhere, just from what I hear from people, in corporations and in my own experiences. So it's not unique to Weatherford by any means, but, this is the world that we live in, where corporations get taken care of, and those who run them, steer the ship, get taken care of the most. And then, we get the crumbs that fall off. And I just encourage people to not accept that. This system is like literally a screwdriver that is turning every day, and its objective is to literally squeeze us to the point of accepting, the philosophies of this beast system, and ultimately to be tagged like a dog through the mark of the beast. So just I would encourage people to consider how that is a bad deal, and ultimately God hates anybody who co-signs the system that is implementing it and then ultimately who takes it. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.